Well, hello everybody. My name is Cassidy. I'm the district forester that covers Jefferson County. I'm based here in Fairfield, and today we are looking at Lamson woods. We've done a few of these video series now throughout the management process, and so today we're here for an update. A quick recap on everything that's been done over the past couple of years is in January of 2022, the sustainable timber harvest was conducted, where we removed basically 106 trees off of 18 of the 43 acres that encompasses Lamson woods. After that timber harvest was done, in July of 2022, the invasive species were removed. One round of invasive species control was conducted. In December of 2022 was when we removed that understory layer, which was the most dramatic part of the management. That was where all of the shade tolerant species in the understory, like the buckeye and the elm and the hackberry, were all removed, and the brush was left on the ground to return nutrients to the soil, provide brush piles for wildlife, and also act as a natural deer fence for the oaks that we're trying to regenerate. And then the last thing that was done was in April of 2023, a prescribed burn was conducted. And so pretty much the entire 43 acres was burned, and that did a number on the invasive species, so that helped control those. It also burned off the leaf litter, which allows acorns to have more direct contact with the soil. So in just a couple of years' time, we've done a lot of work out here. And if you remember, the reason why we did all of that, the broad goal was to regenerate our oaks. We noticed that a lot of the oaks in the overstory were declining. A lot of them are already dead. If you walk the trail that runs through Lamson, you'll see a lot of the skeletons from those dead trees. And then in the understory, we weren't seeing any new oaks coming back through. So we did all of that management to get sunlight on the ground so that we could get oaks to come back. And after the understory was removed, it looked pretty devastating. We did a lot of management in a very short period of time, and immediately after all of the work was done, it was a little bit shocking aesthetically. Ecologically, it was all beneficial for the habitat, but it was hard to take in, especially considering how many trees were cut. So here we are, it's middle of May 2024. So less than 2 years after that was done. Remember, the understory was removed back in December of 2022. And it's already flattened out quite a bit. The brush has kind of flattened out, and the herbaceous growth that you see on the forest floor, that response has been tremendous. If you look out at all this green, it's a diverse array of native plants. Usually when I'm in unmanaged timbers, even if they're dominated by natives, it's usually coralberry, gooseberry, and some other things mixed in. But this has so many different plants that I don't even know what all of them are. We had our DNR ecologist, John Pearson, out here. He's been kind of monitoring the response from the plants over the past couple of years, and he's been really impressed with all the native vegetation that we've gotten back. This is great for wildlife. We have so much browse in here for wildlife that you'll typically think of, like deer, but also habitat for species you might not necessarily think of, like salamanders and pollinators. All this brush on the ground creates great salamander habitat, and all of these native wildflowers and herbaceous plants are really good pollinator habitat as well. But keep in mind, we're doing this for the oaks. We really want to regenerate our oak resource so we don't lose these oak trees. And so as you can see in the overstory, we still have a nice healthy component of quality oak trees that are our seed source. And then on our forest floor, we've kind of been monitoring for oaks to regenerate. And a couple weeks ago was kind of the prime time to really see the oaks, because they were all pretty red. Usually in the early spring, they have a red tint to them. Now, it's a little bit harder to find them because these are brand new oaks from acorns from this past fall. But thankfully, I was still able to find one that has some red to it. So right here is our next generation of oak trees. When we were out here a couple weeks ago, we were finding dozens and dozens of these along the trail. And I'm sure there's more the further you get off trail as well. So there's probably hundreds per acre, if not a couple thousand per acre. It's kind of hard to estimate right now, of little oak trees. So that's a great sign. with how quickly they've already come back. Now we are in the stage of just monitoring. We want to come back out here every spring and see how many oaks are we finding. Hopefully every spring that we're finding more. We want to monitor for the invasives, which we've been controlling, but we want to make sure they stay under control, because you remember all this sunlight that we added to the forest floor is great for all these natives, but the invasives also are pretty good at taking advantage of that sunlight as well. So we'll be monitoring for that. And hopefully, it's kind of a hands-off approach after that. These oaks, if they come in high enough abundance, which I think they are, they should be able to naturally establish and get past the deer browse stage. Little oaks like this are very, very delicious browse for the deer, but hopefully we have enough of them that they can recruit to that next size class. And then 10 or 15 years down the road, these little oak seedlings will be 5 to 10 feet tall and are going to be that next generation of oak trees. So it's very exciting, especially considering how forest management, land management in general, but forest management specifically, is very long term. These oak trees that were harvested and the ones that are still here are old trees, 100, 150, 150 plus years old. And so these little seedlings are going to be that next generation. And so we wanted to hop on here and encourage everybody with, I know it was a lot of intense management, but even just less than 2 years later, we're already seeing the beneficial results. We're getting our oaks. We have a very diverse natural herbaceous understory. The oak trees that we left are healthy. The trees on the ground are decomposing at a good rate, and everything is working well. Nature is doing its cycle and it's working. So this is a fun game you could play with your kids. You could take them out to Lamson Woods and walk along the trail and play Find the Oak Seedling. This time of year they're all starting to turn pretty green. This one still has some red. A couple weeks ago when they're more red, it's easier to spot them. Also the vegetation around them has grown up quite a bit. But these little oak seedlings are our next generation of forest. And all this herbaceous growth around it's all native. And really it's not very competitive with the oaks. These oaks will be able to grow up through this vegetation nice and easily. And all this vegetation around it is going to act as deer food, so that hopefully they don't seek out our little oak seedlings as much or as easy as they would if there wasn't all this native vegetation growing around them. So really encouraging to see little oaks in here like that. So what we're looking at here is more than just a bunch of different green things. We have coralberry, a lot of other native herbaceous plants, but the star of the show is this little oak seedling. This is a brand new oak, probably from last year's acorn. Still has some red tint to it, which is a really good way to spot it out in the timber, but they're starting to lose that red hue and most of them are green, so a lot harder to find right now, but it is a fun game to play with your kids if you want to take them out to Lamson Woods and try to find some oak seedlings. So really encouraging to see seedlings like that. We've got at least hundreds per acre, if not a couple thousand per acre. So nature is doing its thing.